It's a hot morning in Winnie. Just north of town, a farmer on his tractor passes an abandoned building. He spies a body in the shadows and calls the police.
It was very clear that this was a body of a petite, young, white female. It was also very clear that she had been dead for some period of time because there was significant decomposition to the body.
She was lying on her back and her heels pulled up to her body so that her knees were up. She was nude from the waist down. It was evident that the body was posed. There were some tire tracks that led up to where a car would logically be positioned to remove a body from the trunk.
And I noticed a class ring from Alexandria High School in Alexandria, Louisiana, about 3.5 hours away. There was a name printed on the inside of it, Courtney Coco.
My mom and dad had a camp at Bayou. It was on a Friday, 3:30 in the afternoon. Courtney came to my house, and I asked Courtney if she wanted to go with us to the camp. She said, "No, Mom, I'm not the country girl." And I gave Courtney $10 for gas. She was going to come back and forth and feed my 2 little dogs. So we got home from the camp late Sunday night, and Monday around lunchtime, October 4th of 2004, the detective from the Alexander Police Department called me and asked me if Courtney was there. I said, "Courtney doesn't live here, but this is her mom. Is something wrong?" And he said, "Possibly." That's when I got the news of them finding a body in Texas with my daughter's ring on the finger.
On October 5th, 2004, the Jefferson County Morgue did an autopsy on Courtney Coco's body. Dr. Brown had reported that he thought the cause of death was asphyxiation, that she had been smothered.
He immediately realized that the advanced state of decomposition was not normal for the time from which she had gone missing to the time she was found.
He said, well, she had to be someplace that was hotter than the ambient temperature, like in a car.
Investigators learned early on that Courtney had received a settlement from the untimely death of her father.
Missing from the house is any sign of Courtney's cell phone or her Pontiac Bonneville. Detectives notice something else is missing.
What we did not find was evidence of forced entry. What that means is that she let the person into the house. It's somebody she knew.
More than 200 miles away from Bayou country, someone is using Courtney's cell phone in a place where she has no known connections. Houston, Texas.
It was traced to an apartment in Allen Parkway. Allen Parkway Drive was in the 4th Ward of Houston, which is a pretty low-income government housing neighborhood, high crime. And when we knocked on the door, a lady answered the door, and we told her who we were, why we were there, and a 15-year-old male tried to dart out the back door, but the door was locked. He couldn't get it open, and we were able to get through the front door and get him and grab a hold of him before he got out. He had the phone in his possession. When we told him who the phone belonged to and what happened, his jaw dropped and his pupils dilated. He said that he had just bought it from somebody off the street, somebody named Tree and Red. Another tip that went nowhere.
The pace of the investigation slows, like the winding waters of a bayou, and the case goes cold.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. I served over 20 years in law enforcement. I kind of made my bones off of solving cold cases, and that morphed into investigative consultant. The podcast got started totally by accident.
I pretty much called Woody and I begged him to please help me.
When I sat down with her and listened to her pain, it just broke my heart. I said, I'm gonna solve this case or I'm gonna die trying. This case is 15 years old now, and I do not think it can be solved. I know it can't be solved without the help of the public. And we're going to establish a hotline where people can call in tips. It was approximately September 2019, 3 weeks into the podcast, when I received a telephone call from a listener.
Tiffany listens to Woody, calls Woody's show and says, I know something about Courtney Coco's death.
She told me that her ex-husband was the killer's best friend back in that day. Her ex-husband, his name was Seamus.
Seamus! Say hey to my mom.
Hey, Mom.
I asked Tiffany to do the recording of Seamus. I said, what if it was one of your kids? What would you do?
Oh my God, listen to this. Seamus, have you been following the broadcast?
It's crazy.
It's crazy, Sam.
His mama washed the blanket at the house right after she died. Anthony did that.
But why would he do it though? What was the cause of that
I don't know, but he killed Courtney. Let me tell you that.
You gotta listen to it, Seamus. You gotta listen to it. I'm
Anthony
telling
done
you.
it. I'm telling you. Anthony Burns.
David Anthony Burns was Courtney's sister's fiance. When I first heard the recording, was like, holy smokes.
Woody turns over the recording to the Alexandria police. Investigators comb through the list of tips reported over the past 15 years. They find several that mention Anthony.
You got not one, not two, but three people that have said Anthony Burns said he murdered Courtney Coco. He has a connection to Courtney Coco, and he's lied about where he was the weekend she's murdered. Not looking too good for an Anthony at this point, is it?
The evidence is mounting against Anthony Burns, but police want more to secure a conviction.
Detective Tanner Dryden went back and combed meticulously through all of the leads that came in. He found a witness by the name of Jude Wilson.
The night before the body was discovered, Jude's on the road, which has the abandoned house where Courtney's body was found. And there's a dark four-door sedan that backs out of that house at 10-something at night. He almost gets in a wreck with it.
He went in to report this at Chambers County Sheriff's Office like the next day, and it got lost in an investigation.
Jude is contacted by Tanner, 16 years after this occurs? And Jude said, oh yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Turn at the exit to go to I-10 off of 1406 before you get to the bridge.
If you were shown a lineup, you think you would be able to maybe recognize the person?
Jude Wilson, he's an artist, and he's like, I could draw you a sketch of his profile. And he did it and sent it over, and it looked just like David Anthony Burns.
When they put the lineup in front of Jude Wilson, he immediately picked one picture out, and that was the picture of David Anthony Burns.
Anthony Burns pled not guilty to the murder of Courtney Coco.
The jury leaves for deliberations. In a surprising move, the 12 members return in just over an hour.
The jury came back with a unanimous verdict of guilty for David Anthony Burns for second-degree murder and the death of Courtney Coco.
Anthony Burns was dutifully convicted and tossed into Angola for the rest of his life.
Be a victim's advocate for people that didn't have nobody in their corner. I do it because Courtney pushes me forward to keep going. And I feel like with me helping others, that her death wasn't in vain. Because that's what she wanted to do, was help others.